Hi, I'm Andy. We're back again. It's late, but it's not as late as it has been in previous videos. And we are going to make an Android application that draws stuff on the screen, animates stuff like in a game, draws images, bitmaps, stuff like that. So I'm going to call it a drawing sample. You can obviously, if you're following the other videos, you can obviously do all this stuff inside one project. I'm doing them as separate projects just so that these videos can stand on their own. So I'm making a new activity called drawing activity, and if you were doing it all in one project, you would just launch this activity in the way that we saw you launch a new activity in the last video. Okay, so we'll let Android Studio make us a new project. So what we're going to do this time is we're basically going to make a little game loop that updates the state of a little game. It's not actually going to be a game, it's just sort of an animation several times a second and draws on the screen. And we're doing it in a way that will hopefully be will have decent performance. I've been following, in order to work this out when I originally worked it out, I followed this this guide on the Android developer site about using canvases and drawables. It seems to work pretty well. The performance is pretty good, by which I mean it works okay on my phone, and my phone is really old. Okay, so Android Studio has made us a project. It's made us this layout called Activity Drawing. And as you saw on the last videos, for some reason it doesn't like this theme. So if we choose that theme, that error message goes away. So as before, it's made us a layout and it's put a little text view. It's made a relative layout and a little text view. We don't want the text view. What we're going to put there is something called a surface view, and it's going to fill up the whole screen. And instead of doing it on this page, we're going to make it in code. And there's a whole load of hoops you have to jump through before you get a thing called a canvas, which you can actually draw on. We're going to jump through those hoops. Okay, so we're going to delete this text view and go into our Java code, which has been called drawing activity. And as before, in the onCreate method is where we're going to do all the magic. So the first thing we need to do is get hold of this this relative layout that was created for us. We need to give it an ID because it didn't get one. So we're going to call it relative layout. Seems reasonable. Then we're going to get hold of it like this. This is the same incantation that we used before to get hold of something that's got an ID in that XML view. In our code, we do find view by ID r.id.relative layout, because that's the ID. We gave it this ID just now, so this r.id lets us go and find stuff, because it goes and generates some code for us in the background. And then I'm just going to do an Alt-Enter, and I can import that relative layout class. Now we've got hold of this layout, that's what we're going to put our surface view inside. So we're going to say add view, and the view we're going to add is a new surface view. But it's not just going to be a new surface view, it's going to be our own surface view. So just to make it clear that that's what I'm doing, I'm going to call it my surface view. Obviously, when you write your game, you're going to give that class a much better name than that. That's what I'm going to call it for now. I just need to check my notes. I think there's something else I need to do here. No, okay. So we're going to do another Alt-Enter on that, and it offers to create as a class. We'll make that in there. I'll take the defaults. So here's our new class. You're going to watch me fighting formatting again, like I like to do. And this doesn't just extend view, this extends surface view. So we'll make it a surface view, and we're also going to make it implement surface holder dot callback. So a surface view is a thing that is a view that holds onto a surface, or a view that contains a surface. And then there's another thing called a surface holder, which basically handles when you're allowed to draw on the canvas. I think the canvas you can think of as being the thing that's getting held onto. I'm not sure exactly what the difference between surface and canvas is. What we deal with is canvas. Okay, so it says we're not implementing all the methods that we should implement because we're a surface holder.callback. So we're going to Alt-Enter, and we're going to say yes, make me all those methods. Find the formatting. So what's happening here is what we're saying, by saying that we are a surface holder.callback, what we're saying is that we are going to get told when this surface is ready to draw on and when it's not. So we want to draw on our surface, so we need to receive a call on this method, this surface created method, and only then are we safe to draw on the surface. And then if we get this call again, we're no longer safe, so we must stop. Okay, we also need to do something, so I'm going to Alt-Enter again. What was that for? To import surface view, and then we've got to Alt-Enter again to get a constructor. So in order to make a surface view, like a lot of Android things, we have to receive this context and pass it on to our constructor. So the class that made us needs to call a constructor like this. And while we're here, we're also going to, later on, we're going to need a resources passed in. So we'll just pass that through now. Resources is how we get hold of our images and stuff like that. So we may as well put that in now, and I'll show you how we use that later. So where we create this, instead of just creating like that, we have to pass in our drawing activity, which is our context, and we also have to do get resources on that to get hold of the resources for us. Now we're making a surface view, and we're getting told when the surface is being created and when it's being destroyed. So once we've now that we know when we're allowed to draw on our window, that basically means the program started up and got our window all ready for us, and then the user's gone away again, so the surface has gone away, so we need to stop drawing on it. So once we've done that, we need to the next thing we need to okay, so what we need to do is we're ready to receive these events, but we actually need to say to someone, start giving me these events. So what we do is we say get holder dot add callback this. So basically what we're saying here is this surface, you get hold of your surface holder, and then register that we are interested in these events about the surface being created. And basically what we're going to do when the surface is created is start up our game, and when the surface is destroyed, we're going to stop it again. Now obviously, as I said before, don't get excited, it's not really a game, but anyway. So we start off with no game at all. And then when the surface gets created, we fill in this game. And then what we want to do is just tell the game to start playing. So we haven't written this code yet, but we will do soon. And then when the surface gets destroyed, we're going to tell the game stop. And just for shiggles, we're going to set it to null again. So I actually think what we should do here is check for null as well. So in some circumstances, maybe we get this surface destroyed event and we haven't, things are not as we expect. So game hasn't actually been set up yet. Well, let's not try and stop it. I don't like randomly inserting null checks, but I think that genuinely might happen at some point. So let's be safe in this case and just say if there's no game, we won't bother stopping it. So what happens is when the surface gets created, we create this thing called game, we tell it to start, and then when the surface is destroyed, we tell it to stop. And we're also supposed to handle this surface changed thing. So I strongly suggest when you write your game, you handle that. I haven't been handling it when I've been playing around with this, and nothing bad seems to have happened, but I think that's because there are situations I'm not trying out, or even it could be even different devices where this works differently. So I think you need to think about that, and I think what that basically, I don't know, you have to think about that. I haven't. Okay, so we've made up this this thing called game. We don't know what it is yet, but let's make one. So we're going to alt enter on there and create another class called game. And actually, what this class is going to be for is basically for starting a thread that has the actual game loop inside it. That's what we're really using it for. So if we'll enter on here, it will make us a method called start, and let's do the same thing for stop. And basically what we're going to do is create a thread in the start, and start that thread, and then ask the thread to stop again when we stop. So basically we are going to have a thread which we're going to use to launch our game loop. And a game loop. And when we get told to start, we create a thread. Well, what we do is we create a game loop. And the game loop is going to be runnable, which means we can pass it into the thread. And then we start the thread. And then when we get asked to stop, what we're going to do is tell the game loop to stop looping. Now, I've called that method please stop. I'll explain that in a minute, because you might think that's a slightly odd name. So basically, when we get told to start, we create this loop, and it is an instance of runnable, so it gets past the thread. We tell the thread to start, and what that means is another thread of execution goes off. So basically what's happening is our main game loop is happening outside of the normal loop that Android uses for drawing the screen and stuff like that. It happens separately, and it gets complete control over its own timing. So what it does, when it needs to draw on a screen, it says to Android, give me a canvas, and then draws on it, and then gives it back when it's done. And it can do that as frequently as it likes, assuming it's running quickly enough. We don't have to wait for Android to sort of do the UI refresh stuff that it does. We're in control. So this is really for games that we would do this, not for a normal UI where you actually want Android to be controlling the timing of things like that. But in a game, you want your own fine control. Okay, so what we've got a load of errors, so let's get rid of them. Alright, well, let's start off on making game loop. And game loop is something we can pass to a thread, so it has to implement runnable. And that means it needs to have a run method. I'll do that in a minute. It also has a please stop method. Now it may become clear to you why I've called this please stop and not just stop. Runnable actually, threads rather, have a method on them called stop, and that is deprecated and you shouldn't do it. So just to make it absolutely clear, this is a polite stop rather than the horrible stop that you get on thread, which you shouldn't use. I'll call it please stop. Okay, we'll get to that in a sec. So what's happening here is we start the thread in start, and then in stop what we do is we tell the game loop to stop looping, and we are confident that soon it will stop looping. And what happens when a runnable comes out of its run method, then the thread stops running. So what we want to do, just to make this feel